Welcome to Beautiful Pen. This is a podcast about faith-based creativity. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Davis Bunn. He is a best-selling author, he is a screenwriter, he is a passionate advocate for faith-based creativity. Alright, so we invite you together into our podcast where imagination and inspiration meet purpose and faith. So whether you are a writer, musician, or author, or a visionary, this podcast is going to help you to glorify God with the beauty of your words and with your creativity. So grab your journal or your guitar, take a breath. Let's explore the power of faith-based creativity with Davis Bunn.
First question is, how do I grow without relying on worldly trends or clickbait tactics?
Well, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
There are two issues here. Let's deal with clickbait first because that's the easiest. What you're talking about here in social media trending are really what I would call short-term changes or short-term influences. But the worldly trends, to my mind, is an essential component of contemporary art. If you're going to be reaching beyond your own safe little island, you need to be aware of what's happening in the world. My first mentor when I started writing was Arthur C. Clarke, who I've mentioned before. He was the author of any number of books and is considered the father of modern science fiction. But he won the Oscar for Best Screenplay for 2001: A Space Odyssey. When we started working together, one of the things that he insisted that I commit to was reading one book a week from the current national bestseller list. And it did not have to be in my genre, but what I needed to do in my creative direction was understand what the world is looking at right now. This is an important thing for anyone who's trying to make a profession out of their creative work. There needs to be this sense of joining with the current trends. In my opinion, it's one of the issues that really divides the general church population from anyone who's trying to make a profession out of the creative arts. You need to be able to maintain a strong enough faith position to hold to what's happening in the world and again remain isolated within your faith.
How do I stay true to my faith while expressing my creativity?
So really this comes down to an issue of who you are creatively and where you feel called in your prayer time. Again, we are making a very clear distinction between the church community and you as a creative artist inside the church community. Do you feel called to write with faith as a component of your writing? Do you feel called to paint, to photograph, to create in any way where faith is a bedrock component of this work? I have done both. Writing for the faith community, I did more than 40 novels within the Christian publishing world, but I've also done more than 60 novels for the mainstream. And I do not feel there's a great difference here. It still comes down to, are you stable in your faith and do you feel in harmony with who you are as a member of the church while completing this work? That to me is the real question. Are you using your abilities to the utmost, doing as much as you possibly can to develop this gift?
What if staying faithful means slower growth or less visibility?
I really like these questions.
Mm-hmm.
I have never actually confronted this in myself, so I'm really talking theoretically. To me, what happens, the core element of this question is not about your creative growth, but rather your other demands on your time and energies. A child with special needs, a problem within the family that requires everything that you have to give and more. These become points at which creatively growing, doing the utmost that you can with your work, has to take a secondary position. And I feel like this is a natural part of life. I have been through any number of such times in my 40-year career as a writer, 9 years unpublished, working as a business consultant, traveling all the time, and being so exhausted on many days that writing was a dream rather than something I was able to do on a regular basis. We've also had illnesses in the family where maintaining a creative process was just simply impossible. When one of my family members was going through a cancer treatment, I found it impossible to complete work on the story that I had been writing before all of this took place. And instead, I had been approached by a Hollywood producer who was interested in my work for film. There was no actual contract on the table. There was no permanent offer. There was no suggestion of money. And there wouldn't be unless they were able to sell a project. But it did mean that there was an opportunity. So during this time, I was in the hospital cafeteria 3 times a week during the chemo periods. Instead of trying to struggle and make a hash of the VU work, what I started doing was restructuring the story that had most interested them as a screenplay. I had done studies on script writing and done several that had been sort of accepted, but it was only there, and I can still remember there was that moment in the cafeteria one particular day when I walked away from the table I was using as my desk and stood looking out over this gathering of doctors and nurses and realized that one of the things that was holding me back was this defensiveness that I had towards the original story. And the writing that I had been doing on screenplays up to that point had been a refashioning of the cadence and story that I had written originally, holding true to the story. What I realized in that moment of being effectively broken away from the standard course of my life and creative career was that there are multiple ways to tell that same story. The issue is, how do I maintain a sense of veracity around the core concept and interpret this so that it is truly for film? And that was the first script that I sold to a major studio as a result of this very difficult time. So it's important that you don't see periods when you're pulled away from what you would ideally see as your creative process, and instead look at this as life. This is how it's going to be. You need to learn how to adapt and maintain a sense of compass heading, regardless of how difficult this interim period may be.
Okay, I hope you had enjoyed the message from my friend Davis Bunn, and we will come back with another exciting and beautiful topic for you. And don't forget to subscribe our channel and remember us in your prayer.